Good morning. So we are continuing with our series on prayer. And this week it's all about the language of prayer. And the chapter from our book, How to Pray Without Talking to God, our chapter is Reform Your Language around prayer. So if you've been in the New Thought movement for any length of time, I bet you have either participated in this scenario or you've witnessed this scenario. One person says, "Oh my gosh, I'm sick." And the next person says, "Don't say that. Don't affirm that you're sick." There's power in that, right? How many of you have heard a version of that, right? We all have. This is where I just go, okay, that's a misinterpretation of the truth. That's a misinterpretation of the principle. Yes, there is power in our words. But I am is not always a truth statement or an affirmation of truth with a capital T, right? So when I say, I am so tired, do you think the universe might know what I mean by that? Or do you think I can trick the universe? Right? The universe knows what I mean by that. The universe knows that in this moment, I am just really, really tired. So that's a relief, right? I remember when I was a little girl and I was mad at my family, I used to fantasize and ask God to bring a tornado and take them away. I know, it's terrible, right? It was in the Midwest. Tornadoes were a big thing. And they just took things away. And they were just gone. So good thing our words aren't taken literally and instantaneously by the universe. That being said, the flip side is also true. I can say an affirmation, and that doesn't make it into my consciousness necessarily, and into my outer life necessarily. Right? And this is why you've heard me talk about affirmations, we always want to go to that super high level of consciousness, but if it's too big of a leap from where we are, we're going to have trouble, and that affirmation isn't going to have very much power because it's too far away in our consciousness. So our consciousness in prayer is really, that's what we're trying to shift with prayer. Prayer is to shift our consciousness. We're not trying to convince the universe of anything. We're not trying to coerce God into solving our problems. We're trying to shift our own consciousness. So in our beginning of our series, we talked a lot about our divine identity. And you might have noticed when I lead our meditations, where do I start? I start with, let's get focused on our heart space. Acknowledge and embrace the indwelling Christ presence. That's a gentle way of saying, find God, get in the consciousness of God, and then do your meditation. And prayer works the same way. So you might have been taught prayer. They often start with Dear God. And we shift a little bit in unity and we say, Dear Father, Mother God. Because it's not a bearded white guy who lives, over there. But still, if we say Father, Mother God, where does that put us? It puts us separate from God and in a childlike position. And what we're really being called to do now is to grow up and mature in our spiritual understanding. It's time to grow up and be self-responsible for the divine entities that we are. In our prayer class on Tuesday evenings, I love it so much. People are triggered. People are having a hard time with this material. It is really difficult for some. It's really fantastic. And really, it's the yay opportunity, right? Because what's happening is these ideas are butting up against beliefs. So whenever you hear something, whether it's, from me or another speaker up here on Sunday, or you read How to Pray Without Talking to God, and you get ticked off, really, because that's kind of how it shows up. You're like, what is she saying? I don't like that. What's happening is that idea is butting up against a belief that you have. And our words are reflective of our beliefs. Our words are reflective of our beliefs. You've heard me talk about TWEBA, thoughts, words, emotions, beliefs, actions. Those are the ingredients to creating, right? Words. Our words are reflective of our beliefs. If we want to change our beliefs, we can work on our words, because our words are reflective of our beliefs. So if we change our words, eventually our beliefs are going to say, hey, I've heard this a lot. It feels like maybe there's some truth in there. You can get excited about it and adopt a new belief. How many of you have ever, when you were a kid, you were told something with words by someone who had power, a parent, a relative, a teacher, and it created a belief in you? When I was little, I was told I was not marriage material. And you know why? Because I was sassy and didn't take any you-know-what from anybody. And that's not how a good wife would act. I was also told that I was built like a brick house. Yeah. I hit puberty really early, so I had the baby fat of a child, and then I hit puberty, so my body was doing weird things, and maybe I did look like one of those things. But that statement stuck with me for years and years and years. And then my sister had a very different body type than me. She's tall and slinky and gorgeous, right? And so I look at her. Nobody said anything about her. And so that one statement from a person who had power in my life, so there was creative energy in those words because that person had power in my life, actually created my belief system about myself, about my physical self. So words have creative power. If some random person comes up and says, your hair is ugly, you're just going to be like, geez, what a jerk. But what if someone you care about says that to you? You're going to be like, oh, gee, maybe I need to get a haircut. I need to see a professional. Because those words have power, because that person is important to you. So words have power. Linda Martella-Whitsett says about affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer is the practice of recognizing the word, capital W, of truth. Affirmative prayer is the practice of realizing, affirming, and then being the living word. Oh, I love that. I'm going to read that again. Affirmative prayer is the practice of recognizing the word of truth. Affirmative prayer is the practicing of realizing, affirming, and then being the living word. It's living into your divine identity and living from your divine identity. So affirmative prayer, so let me talk about the difference between an affirmation and a prayer. An affirmation is a simple statement. It could be, my body is beautiful. And I can put that on a Post-it note and put it on my bathroom mirror to remind me, right? So that's an affirmation. Affirmative prayer is really trying to, on an internal experience, know the truth of the fact that I am beautiful just because I exist. So affirmations are more intellectual. Affirmative prayer is more of an internal full body experience. One of the things that I like that she says is that in affirmative prayer, we can ask the question, what is the truth that's trying to be revealed in this moment? And I like that because often when we go to prayer, it's because we're having a problem with something, right? I mean, yes, we have prayers of gratitude, but that's not usually where most people dive into prayer. Most people dive into prayer because they're trying to deal with an issue or a problem that they're having. So if I'm having body image issues, what I'm trying to accomplish with prayer is to have a different internal life experience, right? It's easy for me to look at all of the people in this room, to think of people who are joining us online. It is easy for me to think of different ages, different races, different styles, different body types. It is easy for me to think of those people and think, gosh, what a beautiful expression of the divinity. Yet when I look at myself, it's more challenging. So how can I use affirmative prayer to change my life experience? Because that's really what we're talking about. In my bio, you heard creating the life you want to live, right? I don't want to live a life where I'm not happy with myself. I don't want to live a life where I think this package is a bad thing. I want to live a life where I love every cell in my body. And when I come to the world, I am coming from my divine identity, my sacredness, rather than my woundedness. People will say, you're either in spirit mind or ego mind. Your ego is the mechanism through which you express your divinity. Your ego is not bad. You know what causes the problem? Your woundedness. Your woundedness is what's caused the problem, not your ego. Your ego is the mechanism through which divinity can be expressed. Think about that. So we've all met people who will just say are super spiritual and they really got it going on and they're all great. Are they all the same? No, they're all different. Why are they different? Because they have different egos. They have different mechanisms through which they are expressing their divinity. Clean up your woundedness and your ego will be fine. Okay, that's one of my hot buttons. I got myself off track. Oh, the whole ego thing, that gets me going. All right. Oh, yes. What is the truth being revealed in this moment? So when I'm in my woundedness, when I am all right, this part's real. Not that the other part wasn't. This part's real. I've been sitting a lot over the last year, like many people, and I've put on almost 25 pounds. So that's why I wear stretch pants every Sunday, right? And black, yeah. That's why I wear that. And for a minute there, I was really having a problem with that. My literal job, is to get up in front of people and talk. And now I'm not liking my package again. So for a minute, I was really struggling with this. And then I thought, maybe I should practice what I preach. And so I take this to meditation, right? I take this to meditation. What is the truth that is trying to be revealed? And the truth that I need to work on, and I have, and I'm fine now with, I am still counting, it's 22 pounds now, but I'm fine with it, right? The truth that was trying to be revealed is my value and my worth is not measured by my waist size. My value and my worth are not measured by whether I can fit into this piece of clothing or that piece of clothing. Once I worked on that, much to my husband's chagrin, this is the guy who gave me a scale for Christmas. In affirmative prayer, invoking is calling to mind or bringing into awareness the divine. So again, this is when we used to say, Dear God, or Dear Father, Mother God, right? So I want you to think about your own prayer life and how you're going to use words. How are you going to invoke divinity? What I do personally is I focus on my heart and my dantian. Okay, so I focus on this whole area from my heart to my dantian. I focus on the core of who and what I am. I acknowledge that it's there, the divinity, and I embrace it. I embrace it as mine. I embrace it as mine to live. So affirmative prayer is, again, all about taking our consciousness from where it is and shifting it to be closer to living from our best selves. And so in class, in the prayer class, people are really struggling with this. And one of the things is, one person said, and I did ask for permission for this, I don't care what my inner experience is. I want my outer experience to be better. And isn't that so precious? Because that's where so many of us are, right? We just want, I've also heard, my inner experience would be fine if my outer experience were better. But the truth, with a capital T, is that's not how things work. That's not how things work. Because we are the creators of life experience. So if I allow these external experiences to dictate my internal experience, where does the power live? Outside of myself. When I can take ownership, take responsibility for, gain mastery over my internal experience, I am so powerful in my creation that I influence my outside world. So if you're struggling with that whole idea of, well, if things out here were better, if my boss would just stop doing this, or if my spouse would just do that. If you're struggling with that, I invite you to just experiment. When my thoughts and my words are on how much my husband drives me crazy, guess what he does? He drives me, so crazy. But if and we've been together a long time, over 20 years, so, it's always the same stuff that drives me crazy. But when I wake up and I think about how much I love and appreciate him, and when I think about the things that I appreciate, he brings me coffee in the morning. It's the best thing ever. I get to sit in bed and drink coffee and I didn't even have to go get it. It's the best thing ever. That's worth the whole thing, right? But when I focus my thoughts and my words on love and appreciation, guess what? He's still who he is. He still does the things he does. It just doesn't drive me crazy. It's like magic. My internal experience is creating my outer experience. So before we go into meditation, I want you to think about, we all have stuff in our life. Think about something in your life. It can be a relationship, something you fear, something you're mad about. It can be, anything, a health issue. And just think about the words that you've been using. How have you been talking about it? And think about if it's a relationship, the super high affirmation might be, all of my relationships are loving and harmonious. And you might be thinking, well, you haven't met my boss. So that might be too big of a leap for you, right? But you might bring it down and just figure out what's the next rung on your ladder in consciousness. Maybe the best you can imagine yourself doing is seeing your boss as a human being with flaws who deserves to be loved and appreciated. Maybe you can't do it, but that person deserves that, right? This is what I'm talking about, because we're trying to shift our consciousness, right? When we focus our prayers on like I call it rainbows and butterflies, when we focus our prayers and our affirmations on rainbows and butterflies, that shift in consciousness that is so far away it's out of reach, I think that's a way to spiritually bypass our problem and not take self-responsibility for it. Rainbows and butterflies are fantastic. I love rainbows and butterflies. But when we're talking about real life and our real life experience, if we really want self-mastery, and when we talk about the masters, right, the spiritual masters, the Jesus, the Buddhas of the world, when we talk about the masters, what were they mastering? They were mastering the self. They didn't have, super secret, pretend magic, like I'm going to, if I spin around 3 times and jump on one foot and say these words, then magically something will happen. No, it was spiritual magic. It was an understanding, getting self-mastery over the self, knowing their divine identity. And we call them masters because we watched them living from their best selves. So think of your life situation, and how you've been talking about it, the words you've been using about it. Just bring that to mind. And now focus on your heart space. Right here, right now, acknowledge the fact that at the core of your being, you are an expression of the divine. Right here, right now, acknowledge that. Breathe into that knowing. And now embrace it. Embrace that part of you that is sacred. In your mind, say the words, "I create my life experience." From your heart space, say to yourself, "The universe supports me in everything I do." I have what I need. Imagine, sense, and feel your own sacredness. Your own inherent value and worth. It is from this place we have access to divine guidance, divine ideas. Divine strength to persevere through challenging times. Divine wisdom so we can look at perspectives other than our own. Acknowledge and embrace that indwelling sacredness that is you. Whatever your life situation is, ask the question, what truth is ready to be revealed to me now? And we'll hold that for a few moments in silence. What truth has been revealed to you? If nothing came to you, I invite you to do this exercise at home. If something did come to you, I invite you to take these next few moments to replay that in your mind, to write it down. Our unconscious mind is a tricky playmate, and it is easy to forget the wisdom from our hearts. We hold the truth and acknowledge our ability to know the truth, our capacity to live the truth. And if we're afraid to do so, it's okay to just take a breath and do it anyway. I'm afraid, that's okay. I'm going to take a deep breath and do it anyway. And the universe supports me every step of the way. And so it is. Amen.